There's no question. You have to link the two together. Look, in 1964, there was 3 to 4 million cases in the United States every year. After the vaccine development in 2000, we eliminated measles. Since then, when people started not immunizing their kids, this outbreak has begun. The numbers are clear. It's straightforward. There is no controversy.
Dr. Armand Dorian on CNN saying the science is indisputable. The measles vaccine works.
This response came as a measles outbreak linked originally to Disneyland in California has spread across now 14 states and infected more than 100 people, most of whom are children.
Those dramatic numbers have brought this vaccine debate back to the surface. Where should the line be drawn? When do parents have a say? And when should public policy really play the predominant role, or public health, I guess we should say? Let's join Nick Tate, our Newsmax deputy health editor from our South Florida Newsmax TV newsroom, with more on the story. Nick, it's not really a debate on the effectiveness of this vaccine. It's really more about parental control versus public health, correct?
That's exactly right. I mean, what we're really looking at is two issues. On the one hand, you have questions about the safety and the effectiveness of the vaccine. There is no question. There is no debate there. Every credible piece of science shows that vaccines are safe. They do not cause autism. They do not contain mercury. The side effects from vaccines are mild. They tend to be things like fever. But measles is, in fact, a life-threatening condition. So that debate has really been set aside, and every credible medical authority will tell you vaccines are safe, effective, and necessary. It's only folks on the fringe who say that that's not true. But there's a whole other issue, and that is the public health policy. Should parents have the ability and the right to determine health and health care for their children? The answer to that question is, of course. But should parents have the right and the ability to put their children at risk? And should they have the right to put other children at risk by not vaccinating their kids? And what doctors will tell you is that's exactly what they're doing if they're choosing not to vaccinate. So that's where the rich debate is on the public health policy. And my concern is that the two issues are really becoming kind of conflated and confusing.
So, Nick, question for you. The doctor was saying that we basically eradicated the measles back in 2000. Why are we suddenly seeing it emerge again? What is stemming or continuing? What are the word I'm looking for?
Just causing.
What's causing? There we go. That's a simple verb. What's causing all of this fear?
Well, what's happening is that there was a study that came out in the late 90s that suggested that autism might in fact be connected with vaccines. Now that research has been largely debunked, but it was picked up by a variety of people, including Jenny McCarthy and some folks who are in the public eye, who said we need to make these vaccines safer. We need to make sure that kids aren't getting too many in too short a period of time. But follow-up studies after that piece of research, which, as I said, has been debunked, have come out and said time and time again that these vaccines are safe. There is no connection to autism. And yet there are many parents that are not vaccinating their children in places like California. California is one of 19 states where parents can simply opt out of the vaccines for personal reasons, and that's why we're seeing this rapid increase. Just 10 years ago, there were only about fewer than 1% of children were unvaccinated because parents were deciding not to vaccinate their kids. Today it's 2.5% in California. That's 1 in 40 kids, and that's what's driving this huge increase. And the projections from some medical experts are that we're going to see thousands of cases of kids with measles where we never saw them 20 years ago. We're now going to see thousands of cases, and the sad truth is if that becomes true, children will start to die.
Nick, we got about a minute left. Very quickly, political fallout. Chris Christie said one thing about vaccines. It looks like he's backtracking now. Here's what he had to say.
All I can say is that we vaccinate ours, but I also understand that parents need to have some measure of choice in things as well.
So is that going to work in terms of both medical reasoning and political reasoning? 30 seconds.
Well, he did actually follow up with that and then say, just to be clear, vaccines should be required for parents. Vaccines are important. He did follow that up. I do think that, as I suggested, there's a political debate to be made, policy debate on what rights parents have to determine health care for their kids. But as it concerns vaccines, the public health is really the bigger issue, not the public policy.
Coming up, a debate we don't want you to lose sleep over. We're going to talk about that. Also, Nick's newly released book, Da Vinci's Baby Boomer Survival Guide. You get that at babyboomers711.com. More with Nick Tate after this. From the break, let's pick up where we left off because Newsmax Deputy Health Editor Nick Tate, in addition to joining us here, has that new book, Da Vinci's Baby Boomer Survival Guide. There you see the cover of the book, and you can get yours. Find more info and order it at babyboomers711.com, babyboomers711.com.
And we're going to be talking about baby boomers and specifically how much sleep baby boomers need in just a moment.
And babies and older folks.
And older folks. We're not going to leave anyone out. But first, Nick, we want to talk about British lawmakers. They just recently approved letting scientists create babies from the DNA of 3 people. The argument that the move would prevent children from having potentially fatal diseases. Your thoughts on this?
Well, this is akin to cloning. Basically, what they do is they take a donor embryo, they remove the DNA from that donor embryo, and through in vitro fertilization, they insert into that embryo the DNA from a prospective mother and a prospective father. So that child grows up with the genetic attributes of both parents, as well as some elements of the donor, the woman who gave the embryo. So what we really have is a situation where it's kind of, a child will have mommy, and daddy. It is absolutely akin to cloning, and the argument is that it will in fact prevent some mitochondrial-based genetic diseases, but there are obviously some concerns about the ethics of this procedure. The British lawmakers have moved forward and said we're going to allow it, which opens the door to other nations to do the same.
And it's something we'll have to keep our eyes on. Now, in terms of keeping our eyes open, sleep. The National Sleep Foundation updating its recommendations. They've added 2 new age categories. What's going on with the demographics of sleep?
Well, I think what they're doing, what the Sleep Foundation is trying to do is they're trying to provide some guidance on how much sleep you really need depending on how old you are. And these 2 new sleep guidelines have to do with people who are 65 and older. They're now recommended to get a minimum of 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night, not more than that, not less than that. For those 26 to 65, it's 7 to 9 hours. And as you move progressively younger into younger adulthood, teenage years, and toddler years, those numbers actually increase. Of course, sleep is critically important for a variety of mental and physical health functions. Lack of sleep, apnea, sleep problems have been tied to an increased risk for heart disease, diabetes, obesity, anxiety, and depression. So it's what they're trying to do is lay out wherever you are in the age spectrum, this is what you should be aiming for.
Why those specific changes, though? Why did they add those 2 other categories?
This is one of those areas where it's been very undefined. Most doctors and most specialists will say, well, somewhere between 4 or 5 hours a night to 9 to 10 hours a night. It really depends on who you are. What they're trying to do is they're trying to codify it in the way that they do blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and other indications for vital signs. So they're really trying to give you an age, stages of life recommendation depending on where you are.
And stages of life, both demographically and historically, for Nick Tate in our newsroom and yours truly, and the guy getting ready to come on. We're all baby boomers. So it's Da Vinci's Baby Boomer Guide, the newly released book authored by our friend Nick Tate. Again, you can get yours by going to the website babyboomers711.com. As an official boomer, I know I'm going to have to read it, as is my lovely bride, Miss Mary. Of course, demographically, you're little removed.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm not the baby boomer generation, so I need more sleep.
I think that's the whole thing. We all need more sleep, but we're glad you're wide awake, and you'll want to stay wide awake for the guy who follows us next. Waiting in the wings, Ed Berliner with Midpoint. That starts at noon Eastern, followed at 3 by the eponymously named Steve Malzberg Show, featuring Steve Don't Call Me Eponymous Malzberg, and we wrap things up in our live programming at 6 p.m. Eastern with the Daily Wrap. Joe Concha MCs that for us. So, I think we have things almost in order. As Nick Tate and your doctor might recommend, get a good night's sleep.
No matter what your age.
And be back here tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock in the East, 6 a.m. in the West for America's Forum. Miranda promises to be here. I, even as a recovering member of Congress, one promise I'm going to try to live up to. I'll be here. You be here too. Until then, stay brave, stay free, stay tuned, and thanks for watching.